Hi there. Welcome to the first edition of The Naked Truth. My name is Dirk Klein. This will also be broadcast on the YouTube channel of learmedia.tv. So please do check us out on YouTube. It's learmedia.tv. Now, The Naked Truth is going to be just a series of, I suppose, opinion pieces. There's no scientific studies done for this. Is just my opinion, the way I have perceived things over the last few years, or even just how I see things, more or less, my observations on life in general. And in my first edition, I want to talk about something which is annoying me, so to speak, a small bit, because it's getting more and more ridiculous by the day nearly, and it's I want to talk about this whole woke generation and the cancel culture. Now, funny enough, this whole cancel culture, it's the bizarre thing is it's not something that's been advocated uh, or done by just one side of the political spectrum. It's done by the right as well as by the left. And I'm just going to give a few examples. I'm starting off by a far right with a far right politician slash Christian pastor who a couple of years ago claimed that, and I get ready for shocking revelations. And if you want to laugh afterwards, I can totally understand, because that's how I felt when I heard this first. This Pastor Jerry Falwell, look him up, Jerry Falwell Senior. He warned some parents of toddlers that Teletubbies for some reason were damaging to them, to their little tykes, their offspring, because the character called Tinky Winky was gay. He was gay because he had a purple, not even pink, a purple triangle on his top of his head, and he had a handbag. Now, my question is, who cares if he was gay? Really, it's a children's program. I mean, how bizarre, how let's call it as how stupid can you get? Really, I mean, making an issue about something like that, a toddler's program. I mean, first of all, he shouldn't be watching in the first place. That says more about him than it says about any character in a 10 minutes children's toddler show. Now, that's the one thing. On the other side, you have this new phenomenon of this whole trying to cancel books, trying to get rid of books. Started off with a book like The Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls. We all know them. We all know the book. We've all seen the TV show, which was gone on for years and years now. I was never a great fan of the show because to me it was always a bit lame. I like my westerns a bit more full of action, but hey, it was a popular show. But the book was also a bestseller. But some people now they want to have that book cancelled. Basically, that's what it is, cancelled. They want to get rid of the book, delete it, get it away from the curriculum of any library, school, just get rid of it. Because for some reason they think it endorses racism. How they get that, they can't explain that to me. They because it's basically it's because it's impossible. It's it's a biography of a young girl's life and her family living in this family in this community, and that's what the story is about. I mean, it's not a fictional story; it's true events. But they want to cancel it because of racism. I think it's because there might not be any African Americans in it, but it wasn't in that community. We're going back to the was it early 20th century, late 19th century. That was one thing, and then more recently they talk about some of the Dr. Seuss books, and again, and this is not this is on the left side of the political spectrum. talked about Dr. Seuss books. They seem to be racist as well for some reason. And again, to me, it's bizarre. Why do you think that? I mean, products like Uncle Ben's, they want to change it. And recently in here in Ireland, well, actually this week, there was a politician, so I'm not going to mention the name. Well, I will actually. I forgot the first name, but I think it's Madigan is the last name. Fidelma Madigan, I think so. I think it is, but I corrected if that's the wrong name. Well, actually, let me make sure that I'm not telling any fibs here. Let me see now. Her name was. I do apologize for the delay, but I want to make sure I have all my facts straight here. So, okay, let me see. What she wanted to change was actually an Irish newspaper called the Kerryman. So this is so utterly nonsensical. It scares me that these people are actually in government. So I mean, okay, Josepha Madigan was her name, and she wanted the newspaper to change the title of the name of the newspaper, which has been there for years and years, for decades, the Kerryman to be changed into the Kerry People. Now, to be fair, I heard one of the reporters this week ask her, what about magazines then, like Woman's Way? Do we need to change that as well? And well, she didn't really have a proper answer for that. So it's, I mean, I could ramble on for this for hours and hours and hours. Whatever I say about it, it makes no sense because it makes no sense. Because she wants to rebrand the title to include women. And what I find most bizarre with all of this, how you call it, woke community, because I have no other name for them, this woke philosophy, is that these people are offended for others. It's not like these things come up by people who are supposed to be offended by it. No, they're offended for others. I mean, even I had an occasion once where someone was offended for me for some bizarre reason, because someone was making jokes about a half-blind man, which I am. I have only one eye, and they were being offended for me. I wasn't offended by the joke, but this person in particular was offended for me. And I said, well, can you please stop doing that? It's the only bit of pleasure I still have in life, that I can be offended myself by things. So I don't need anyone to hold my hand to say, well, you should be offended by this, or you should be offended by that. I'm a big enough man, I can figure it out myself. So it's, this world has become so political correct that people do not realize what we're actually doing, because this whole cancel culture, it's not new. If you go back to, say, the banning of books on April 8, 1933, there were some students in Berlin. They decided that some books were no longer appropriate for the German way of living in 1933. So they decided to purge all those books. Now, those books were mainly from Jewish authors or people who were either related to Jewish authors or had some kind of links to Judaism, but even authors like, for instance, J.R.R. Tolkien was included in that as well. So I mean, classics, and they burned the books. And we all know, we've all seen the pictures of the book burnings. in 1933 and other years as well. And that's exactly the same, really. Just the fact now it's they are shaming these books online or via social media, especially like the likes of Facebook and Twitter. But it's basically it's the virtual version of book burning. And no one is doing anyone a favor with this. Really, they're not. And it's only what I'm very afraid of, and I'm very afraid of, and I mean this in all sincerity and complete, complete genuinely about this as well. Um, if we keep giving in to both sides, the extreme right, the extreme left, or even the less extreme right and extreme left, and give in to this change culture or whatever you have, the ultra conservatism or the ultra liberalism, if we just follow their route, we will be facing a genocide like we've never seen before. And you might think, well, that's a bit exaggerated, no, a genocide like we've never seen before. But this is my warning, because this has happened before. This the same thing happened back in the 1920s, 1930s Germany. We also had the clash. We had the Weimar culture, not necessarily the Weimar Republic, but the Weimar culture, where everyone was very liberal. Everything was open, and anything could be done. And on the other hand, you had the far right kind of clashing um, with the other philosophy, but that left the people in the middle stuck to not knowing who to vote for, because if they would go too liberal, that wouldn't necessarily tally with their beliefs, even though they might have felt liberal or some one way or another. And the other side, that if they were too far right, it might have been too extreme then for them as well. But whoever gets the power then decides what kind of philosophy, what kind of ideology will be followed. And either way, this is not a good one. If you look at 1930s Germany, Nazis won, so to speak. The Nazi philosophy won. And we all know what happened. We will all know, we all seen the stories about the Holocaust. And I've written many stories about them, and it breaks my heart every time I read about it. But we've all seen it. On the other side, you have the extreme left, like the communism, like Stalin's communism, and similar. He killed 20 million of his own people. But you see, that's what I'm so afraid of, because if it gets too liberal, people might go either the communist way or the fascist way, and vice versa. It interlinks. People think these things aren't linked, they're different, but they're not really. The core of this is they're basically the same. They're just dressed up differently, but basically the core is the same. It's a group of people trying to push down their philosophy down to people's throats, to kind of get them aligned to their way of thinking. And anyway, anyone who thinks differently than them are branded as whatever. Nowadays it's racist. It could be anything. It could be misogynist. It could be anything. Privileged. But it's the same. It's the same principle, and that's where you kind of lose the middle ground, and that's where it gets scary. And people will sway one way or another, and even none of those ways are good. That's just my fear, and this is my warning for the future. Now, I hope you enjoyed my first The Naked Truth. There will be more in the future to come. As I said, this will also be broadcast on learmedia.tv on our YouTube channel. So by all means, follow us. And if you do like this, click on like. And also, if you don't mind subscribing to the channel, would be great, because we need the listeners to come into us. And again, you can also send us an email at info@learmedia.tv or .ie. It's also on our YouTube channel. You can find the information there. So if you agree with me, great. Just send us an email. If you disagree with me, that's fine too. But that's one of the points I want to make really here. It's with this whole cancel culture. If you start canceling historical events or anything, you'll lose in essence. You lose the history, and once we forget our history, we forfeit the future, and we don't want that to happen. We really don't. So, and we need to have a debate on this. We shouldn't be just saying, "Oh well, I'm wrong, he's right. I'm right, he's wrong." There's a middle ground there to be found. There has to be a debate, and just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I don't like you, and vice versa. So that's something people forget nowadays. If you disagree with someone, they get all high and mighty. Oh, um, so we're adults, okay? We've all have a sense, a level of education. I hope, but the more I look at very highly educated people, the scarier I get as well, because they sometimes just focus on one thing. Life isn't just black and white. There's a whole spectrum of colors in between. And if we just ignore those colors in between, God help us. Okay. See you next time. Sloan.